Welcome to CarePod, a safe place to educate, inspire, and renew the caregiver. Listen in with our host, Dr. Kipley Bell, as she interviews different experts along the caregiving journey.
So I'm really excited today. You know, we've been in our nutrition series. We had a chef on last week, Chef for Seniors. And today I'm sitting with Powerhouse. I stalked her. She came in my stratosphere through another friend. And I said, listen, please connect me. The STACEY Woodson of STACEY Woodson, LLC, nutritionist extraordinaire, I should say. But really, just welcome. Thank you for taking the time and making it happen to join us here on the CarePod today.
I appreciate you having me.
Yes. So, first question I ask all my guests is your why. Why good nutrition? How did we get here? Tell us all the things.
Okay, I feel like this is kind of a long story, but a good one. So I wanted to be a physician for a really long time. So I've always had an interest in health and well-being. And so my original degree is from Hampton, and it's in biology because I thought I was going to go to med school. But after I graduated from Hampton, I wanted to take a little bit of a gap year, and I started working at a lab at the University of Pennsylvania. And I started doing my interviewing for med school and took the MCATs, all that stuff. And sometime during my interview process for med school, I read an article about nutrition. So keep in mind, like, nutrition had been something that I knew was important, but I didn't know much about it specifically as a field. And I read this article, and this article said that 3,500 calories was equivalent to 1 pound. And that blew my mind. Because although I cared about what I ate, I never really thought about portions. And so I decided to change, pay attention to how much I was eating, not change what I was eating, coupled with the fact, remember, I had just graduated. And so I'm working at the University of Pennsylvania, and anybody that's familiar with it, parking in a college community, especially in an urban area, is terrible. So I just decided, you know what, I'm not even going to drive. I'm just going to walk. So it was about 1 mile each way from work. So I was walking 2 miles a day and eating smaller portions of the same food. And I lost a significant amount of weight. I don't really know how much because that was never my intention. I never really cared about the number on the scale. But if I had to guess, I would say it was about 20 pounds. And it wasn't until people that had known me for years were like, what? What are you doing? And I was like, but at that point in time, that's when it really hit me this is a thing. And so then I started looking into nutrition more, and I found out becoming a registered dietitian was a whole career path. And I also realized that as somebody that wanted to be a physician, what do you want to do? You want to help people, right? You want to help people. And I was like, I can do that with nutrition. I was like, many of the most common diseases in this country have nutritional related roots. So wouldn't it be amazing to still be able to help people in a similar capacity, but do something that doesn't cost as much money and doesn't take as long as a career path? And so I ended up going back to school to get a second bachelor's in nutrition, and then went on to get a master's in nutrition and do my we have to do an internship and sit for the exam. So that's how I fell into the world of nutrition.
I mean, you've already given me a tip already. You've given our guests a tip already. 3,500 calories is equivalent to 1 pound of weight. How about it?
Yes.
So tell me, how do we eat to live? Because
Yeah.
How does the busy professional eat to live?
So I feel like there's so many different ways that, you can answer that question. And I have to say that my way of practicing would be different than a lot of other people. I always tell my clients that just like parents, we all have this same, any parent has the end goal is that they want their children to be happy, healthy, and thrive in society, right? But how we go about it is going to be very different. And so my particular stance when it comes to nutrition is I absolutely respect people's cultural and personal preferences, and absolutely think that nourishing both your mind and body is very, very important. And so with that being the foundation of my nutrition counseling or my nutrition goals, it would be to make sure that you have joy and nourishment in the majority of your food choices. And so one of the things that I often tell my clients is I want you to think of two questions whenever you're eating. Well, before you ask these two questions, you really have to define your why. Like, what are your nutrition goals? Because if you're training for a marathon, if you're just trying to get by because you're caregiving and you just have so much on your plate, or if you have diabetes and you're trying to manage them, those are all very different whys. And that's where people
Mm,
get messed up because they're trying to
mm.
follow guidance that they hear for somebody else that has very different nutrition goals. So identify your why. And once you have your why, whenever you sit down and eat, you want to ask yourself two questions ultimately. The first one is, are my meal choices in line with my goals? And so that will be a yes or no question. If they are, great. You're on your way to improving your health. If they're not, that can be okay. But number two would be, does this food bring me joy? Because we are allowed to eat for joy. But this is unabashed joy. It's not like, oh, I know I shouldn't be eating this. Like, oh, that is not joy. When you have all that self-talk in your head, and the example that I usually give someone, if it's your birthday and you have a slice of cake, unless you've been eating cake all week, you're not going to feel guilty about it, right? It's your birthday. You get to celebrate. And so when I say joy, that's what I want you to think about. And when it comes to busy people that are doing a lot, in addition to that, the other piece of advice I would give is I want you to think about adding and not subtracting. And when I say that, I mean
Mm.
add in things that you know that you need more of. And don't worry so much about taking away things, because the psychology of it, a lot of this is psychology. Um, think about how you feel when somebody takes something away from you. Doesn't feel very good. But if you're just like, you know what, let's strive to have a extra piece of fruit a day. You're like, you know what, I can do that.
I am
Um,
loving you right now. I love it. I love it's so true, right? Because
mhm.
okay, so not to interrupt, but like, okay, because I know my audience that knows me is going to call me out right here. So, what about if my joy, my personal joy, is Chinese food or food that is laden with sodium that I know that is not, but that's my comfort. I love that brings me joy. So, what do you say to those people? Or what if the patient says, "Well, McDonald's is my joy."
So you set boundaries around it. So once
Okay.
again, everything can fit. But it's a matter of how frequently we're doing it. So Chinese, right? If Chinese is your thing, maybe you say, and this all depends. Remember, everybody's very different. So it depends on where you are right now. Maybe you say, okay, once a week, I get to enjoy Chinese. And that feels very different than I know I'm not supposed to be eating this. Now, if you're eating Chinese, 7 days a week, then maybe you say, all right, 3 days a week, I can eat Chinese right now. And then I'll scale it back as I can. And you bring it back. So you start where you are, you set a realistic goal. Because at the end of the day, we always want to win, right? There's so many things in life that's going to get thrown at us, but we want to win. So we want to give ourselves a realistic goal that we can kind of step back. And then as we start to see those benefits of stepping back, that's when we can do things that are a little bit more challenging, because we already are invested because we see the outcome. And that's why I said
Yes.
add and not subtract. So, if you're adding a additional serving of fruits or vegetables or water, whatever it might be, you might see your skin clear up, or you might have better bowel movements, or you might sleep better. And you're just like, wait, like this works. Now I'm excited. Now I'm
Right.
enrolled. And now I can do something that's a little bit more challenging.
I love it. So how do you take the, you know, excuse the ignorance, right? But the food chart or the diagram of, the balanced plate, right? How do you make that pop culture or of interest in this day and age of fast, 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 quick, 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 but be healthy, but we're multitasking, where even our bellies are multitasking because we're so busy. How do you when you sit with a client kind of bring that into focus and reality so that when we're in the cafeteria at the hospital or where we're on the go and we're thinking, okay, add, not subtract, and we're changing our psychology, what does that look like?
So it's going to look very different for everybody. And actually, I just came back from a professional conference, and I had a conversation with another registered dietitian, and I was like, sometimes I feel like I'm not doing my job appropriately because we don't even get into the clinical stuff because there's so many layers in front of that. Like, if somebody has a heart attack and I tell them, to eat some nuts, like they're not really thinking about eating nuts if you just had a heart attack, right? So you have to kind of meet them
Yeah.
where they are. And so sometimes those guidelines aren't even like the first thing that we can talk about. It is simply getting you to a place where you're causing no more harm or you're mitigating harm. So it really, really depends on the person. But it might be as simple as, I've seen everything. I've seen people that have very rigid habits and they're just like, oh, I count, how many broccoli florets I eat and this, that, and the other. And I'm just like, whoa. Or, they're counting calories. And then I see people on the other extreme that are drinking, 12 cans of soda a day and going to fast food every day. So it's kind of really evaluating where you are, what your why is, what is realistic for you to do at that moment in time, because sometimes there's things that we want to do but we just don't have the capacity to do, and so we say we're going to do them but then we fail and then we feel bad about it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Especially those on the weight loss journey in terms
Yeah.
of milestones and so forth. Absolutely. Absolutely. Sometimes you need impactful care when the office is closed. For after hours or weekend telehealth visits, email us team@impactfulcare.com. In the subject line, put Need Care After Hours. Your health matters, day or night. Absolutely. Absolutely. So, when we talk about capacity, I think my biggest pain point as a clinician, I just came off of a recent visit where I completely understood that this family does not have the capability to bring adequate nutrition into their home. They are literally beyond not even check to check, but just trying to make ends meet.
Mm.
So, as two clinicians of color, women of color, just discussing disparities in healthcare, even when I think about hospital systems that I've been in their cafeteria, and some of our pets eat better than what's
Mm.
served or what's reprocessed or reheated and then served to the population. So I often wonder, how do dietitians function in that setting, one, and then two, in the outpatient setting? What are your tips for creativity around, getting adequate, balanced meals in the home of a family member that they just don't have it to do?
Let me just say this point and then I'll get
Of
there,
course.
is
Yeah.
that I think for this reason specifically, the way that we describe food and the way that we talk about food is so, so very important. Because often, and this is definitely a thing with people that have like kids that are in the school system. And so you have all these different socioeconomic brackets, and you have those that have more saying, oh, like that's junk or that's bad for you. And then you have these children,
Mm,
they just need to eat to survive. Like they just need to meet their energy levels. We can't even really have these detailed conversation of, are you meeting your vitamin and mineral needs, because they're literally just
right.
trying to survive. So the way we speak about food and teach our children about food, just keep in mind we want to be kind. So when they go into the world, you know, they're not disparaging somebody else that this is the only meal that they have. They're talking about this cafeteria food is terrible and it's got all this fat and salt, and I just want to throw that
Mm,
layer there. But when it comes to people that are on extremely limited budgets, I think that it's really important to think about those staples. And, often we think that food has to be fancy, but there's a reason why people have existed on staples for so long. So things like rice and beans and eggs and bread and peanut butter and, canned tuna, all of those things can be budget friendly, often available. A lot of those things are often available through WIC programs. They're often available. You definitely could get them with EBT benefits. It's really having a conversation of asking these questions, because once again, as a clinician, and if I'm telling you to drink more water and maybe you don't have running water, like
right.
you're not going to volunteer that information there's
Right.
that disconnect. So we really have to see what they're working with. Because, you know, I could tell you to boil some eggs or make some rice, but if you don't have access to electricity,
It's a
right?
thing.
So
It's a thing.
there's so many different things, but I would say, you know, thinking about those things that are going to be more budget friendly, not necessarily thinking about thrills. I would absolutely utilize canned vegetables in this case to get some form
Really?
of uh, it's either those or
Hey, it's
none.
better than nothing. Right. Got you.
Right.
Okay.
And this is where
I get
that
it.
being kind about our choices come from. If they have access to like a refrigeration, then I would probably recommend frozen. But if we're talking about somebody that doesn't have that, then a can is shelf stable for a really long time. You can pick it up at food banks, right? So these are going to be the things that are available and accessible. I would encourage them to soak whatever you got out of the can, whatever food, fruit, vegetable, whatever it is, to bring out some of the salt content. That is something that we can do to make it a lower sodium choice. But it really depends on what that individual has access to. I would also encourage people to, you know, talk to your neighbors around. Often, you know, people have leftovers that they're going to throw away. If you make those connections in the community, like I know there was a kid on my block and I knew that they didn't have enough food to eat, I would look out for that kid, right? So those community connections. And then this is big, a big part of, we didn't even talk about this, a big part of what I do in my practice is potentially growing some of the things that you eat the most. So, you
Yeah,
know, like, go
you just took it out of my mouth because I was going to say now we're getting back to, you know, farm to table.
right.
So, you know, just early childhood education, teaching farming and growing your own, you know, fruits and vegetables. So,
And
you know, that's absolutely an option. Yeah.
yeah, and so I would start, and this is what because I live in the city. I live in West Philadelphia in a row home, so I don't even have, you know, I don't have one blade of grass. I have cement, but I'm growing food and I grow it in pots. So really opening people's eyes, letting them know that, you know, these greens that you're paying good money for, especially if they're organic, you can grow them. You know, people, you can,
Yeah.
somebody will give you seeds, somebody will give you dirt. Like we can figure out how to get you those things. And a lot of there's different things that we can grow in window sills, on porches, on patios. So you
Absolutely.
don't have to have a lot of land. And so that's once again, that's an area that I do a lot of work in, making sure people have access to the foods that they need. Because I can tell you to eat them. And so I turn blue on my face. But if you don't have access to them, that's very problematic.
That's it. And it's our ultimate responsibility and due diligence, right? To, you know, create the path for the patient or the client to follow in terms of how to get to goal. So beautiful. So tell me your favorite meal, and is there an elder in your life that, you know, kind of drops some seeds, if you will, of wisdom along this food nutrition journey?
I definitely can think of the elder, but I'm trying to think of the favorite food first. I don't do a ton of favorites. I just really like food. But I'm gonna say that I love eating black eyed peas, rice, and cabbage. Like I eat
Mm,
it all year round.
yum.
I
Yes.
actually just had some black eyed peas today. I made a black eyed pea salad. So that's gonna be my favorite meal for today. But when we think about elders, I immediately think of my grandmother. And my grandmother passed away when I was about 15, but I
Mm.
was her only grandchild. And I would spend like, you know, chunks of time with her, weeks or summers. And like looking back now as an adult, specifically an adult that cares very much about the earth and repurposing and being eco-friendly, I look back at some of the things that she did and I was like, oh, she was an OG in this, right?
Yeah.
And so I remember teasing her because she would pickle everything, right? But what a way to cut down on food waste. Like she would pickle watermelon rinds and just it all. And I got my love of tea from her. I wasn't old enough to know this, but she was the family winemaker. So it's just these things that I wish I could pick her brain right now. With the lifestyle that I live and the knowledge that I have now, I wasn't, you know, when you're young, you don't know to ask
Yeah.
these questions, but definitely
That's
my
it.
grandmother.
Oh, that's so beautiful. I love that. And you know, I've been in this vein lately of just thinking of legacy, how we're just all walking legacies of, you know,
Hmm.
those that come before us. Like it sounds hokey, it sounds overused, but it really is the way in which we walk out the purpose in our own lives. So
Absolutely.
yeah, so switching gears, we also have another talent which is your travelese. So tell us about what you're doing in the travel industry.
So, I am a travel agent. I actually do the least of all my jobs, but I am a travel agent, and I am a member of an amazing Black-owned travel agency called Extra Vacations. And
Love
so,
it.
yes, we plan, which is primarily based in Facebook. So it's a Facebook group. You can go there, and
Love
there's
it.
lots of different vacations posted on a regular basis, and that is how we interact with most of our clients, but that is what I do as well.
Love that. So do you plan custom vacations for people?
I can. Like I said, I do primarily the nutrition stuff right now. So if it's something that
Okay.
is not my wheelhouse, I absolutely would pass you off to somebody else within the agency to make sure that you get that vacation, that special flair that you're really looking for.
Awesome. And then what about multi-generational travel? Because that's the, pain point of a lot of us that are caring for the older adult. We have little ones in tow, etc.
Yes. So you want to know if that's my specialty?
Or if that's an option as well on
Oh,
the platform.
absolutely. It's
Yeah.
becoming more and more of an option, especially one that everything costs so much more now that oftentimes, especially if you have younger kids, sometimes it's your parents, the grandparents helping to make this a reality. And of course they would want to tag along. Sometimes it's just you need that getaway. So you're having these multi-generational trips. So absolutely. And
Cool,
renting
cool,
homes is a
cool.
great option for that one. So
Yes,
everybody has
yes.
their own space and their
Their
own comforts.
space.
Mhm.
Yes, yes. So, okay, tell us, we're international. Tell us if you have remote options, how a client sits with you, gets with you, all the things.
Sure. So absolutely. If I see clients face to face, it's one-on-one. You can visit my website, which is my name, Stacey Woodson. So STACEYWOODSON.com. And you can definitely reach out to me there. I also do lots of workshops, presentations, and things like that. So while you're on my website, go ahead and join my mailing list so you can be kept up to date about what's
Absolutely.
happening. And if you are in the Philadelphia metro area, I do a lot of in-person events as well. So you could follow me online. I'm most active on Instagram, and my Instagram handle would be Nutrition by Stacey. And once again, that's a Stacey with the EY. And if you have littles, I am a children's book author as well. So I write,
Love it.
yes, I have a
Love it.
series which is called Delicious and Nutritious. So each book in the series, it is, well, I'll take a come back. I was inspired to write the series by one of my children who happened to be a picky eater. So before I wrote the book, I knew I was going to have at least 3, because I have 3 children, 3 books in the series, and each one of my kids would be a main character in the story. So I have a series. I still owe my son a book, but I have 3 titles in the series currently.
Oh, so amazing. Such a full, amazing life. I love it. I love it, love it, love it.
Thank
I
you.
personally will be joining your email list. Impactful Caregiving is already a follower of your Instagram
Yay.
page. So I just really think it's cool and look forward to collaborating with you as well on events in the future. So thank you so much for
Thank you.
joining the Care Pod.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
Great information right from the source. For more information on how to caregive like a boss, check out impactfulcaregiving.com. Want to be a guest on the show? Contact us at CarePod at impactfulcaregiving.com.